Hello and welcome to PressTV Spotlight. I'm Marzia Hashimi. Thanks so much for being with us. U.S. President Donald Trump has never been a non-controversial figure. However, during this current term as president, controversy has reached an all-time high, while his approval ratings have reached an all-time low. He is attacking or threatening to attack countries throughout the world and is currently killing fishermen off the Venezuelan coast and threatening to invade that country. From executive orders allocating military personnel to go to the border, to rolling back civil rights, to sending the National Guard to keep watch on some cities. There's much which has been done by this administration and much that many Americans are dealing with right now. Stay with us as we take a look at how these acts and others have affected the Trump presidency and how they are having rippling effects inside of the states and beyond. Here's more.
The honeymoon is over. The Economist reports Donald Trump's approval has plunged to historic lows, with ratings on immigration, inflation, and even among young voters collapsing. According to The Economist, Donald Trump's approval has fallen faster than any recent president. What began as a nation divided has become a nation disillusioned. His net approval now at -18, lower than any point in his first term. But beyond the numbers, the failures are visible on the streets. In Charlotte, North Carolina, thousands gathered to protest the government's mass deportations of migrants. What was once a rallying cry for Trump's base has become a lightning rod for anger, dividing communities and sparking unrest.
We will not put up with ICE! We will not put up with ICE!
Across Latin America, the administration's strained handling of Colombia and Venezuela has deepened mistrust. Even at home, it has drawn sharp criticism.
It's chilling to me to see those scenes of the United States of America blowing up boats with no transparency.
Even the U.S. allies accuse Washington of violating international law.
And given that those military operations are not compliant with international law.
On trade, tariffs, once hailed as a tool for economic nationalism, have backfired. Businesses complain of rising costs, consumers face higher prices, and America's global competitiveness has suffered. Despite the U.S.-mediated truce in Gaza, Palestinians are still being killed on a daily basis. Israel's restrictions on aid delivery have left civilians stranded, hungry, and desperate. And when protests erupt, the nation that claims to champion freedom of speech is seen silencing it.
One thing the White House is desperate to stop are any sort of anti-Israeli protest, any kind of anti-genocide protest is going to get squashed.
On the home turf, the government shutdown revealed dysfunction at the highest levels. Millions of Americans felt the impact. Federal workers went unpaid, services were halted, and confidence was shattered. For a leader who promised efficiency, the shutdown symbolized paralysis.
He lied, and he said he was going to take care of the prices, make them go down on day one, and it's day whatever, and he hasn't done anything.
And finally, the shadow of Jeffrey Epstein continues to haunt the administration. Questions of judgment, association, and accountability refuse to fade, adding yet another layer of controversy to a presidency already mired in distrust.
There is a legitimate and deep anger in many communities against the immigration policies and the ICE agents, but looming behind all of this, of course, is the Epstein files.
Taken together, these failures paint a picture of a president losing not just popularity, but legitimacy. From Charlotte to Caracas, from Wall Street to Main Street, the discontent is palpable. The honeymoon is long over, numbers are falling, and the question now is not whether Donald Trump can recover, but whether the country is willing to wait.
I'd like to welcome my guest to the program. Abayomi Azikiwe, editor Pan-African Newswire out of Detroit. And Tony Gosling, historian and investigative journalist out of Bristol. Thank you both for being with me. We started off in Detroit with Abayomi. Good to see you. As of today, November 17, 2025, Donald Trump has been president for 301 days and has a disapproval rate of 58%. And it's a very high rate so early in his presidency. And actually, he has actually fallen much quicker than previous presidents in recent years. Your overall assessment of sustainability with this president for 3 more years?
Well, the tenure, this tenure of the president has been completely disastrous. All the claims that he made during the campaign last year have not been fulfilled. But the reality is, for people who were aware, they put out a document called Project 2025, way before the elections last year, where they outlined all of these policy imperatives. And what has happened is that hundreds of thousands of federal employees have lost their jobs. Departments such as the Health and Human Services, they have laid off thousands upon thousands of people. Their policies are causing the increase in diseases such as childhood measles, which was almost eradicated here in the United States. Now we see a huge surge in proliferation of these diseases, measles, whooping cough, and it's just absolutely disastrous what is going on here in the United States, not to mention the repressive actions that are occurring, sending thousands upon thousands of immigration and customs enforcement personnel into cities, into rural areas, Custom and Border Patrol. They've sent the National Guard into Los Angeles.
Okay, stay with me, Abayomi, because I'm going to get to that. I know you want to go through the whole thing, but I know there's so much to talk about when we're talking about Trump.
Yeah, just cut me off.
Yeah, no problem. Well, Tony, what would you say has been the most controversial act of Trump, this presidency, this administration?
Well, I think the most obvious is actually foreign policy and his total failure to deal with the war in Ukraine, which he promised would be finished. So Trump is in a bit of a difficult situation. I think he entered this term with a great deal of confidence that he was going to make a better show of it than last time. Slowly but surely, though, I think he's been boxed in. I remember a brilliant interview by, I think it was Gary O'Donoghue of the BBC, of Donald Trump, where Donald Trump admits, he says, actually, I don't trust anybody. I think he's surrounded by sharks. Now, I'm not saying that he's some sort of great guy, but this is where American politics is at the moment. It's the same in British politics in many ways. Trump has done much better than Sir Keir Starmer, our Prime Minister, who's now at minus 45 percentage points in his approval rating. But mind you, he's been there a little bit longer than Trump, so they're falling fast. But the problem is big issues like, say, for example, China. China is a very powerful economy that America and Britain and Europe cannot compete with.
Okay, stay with me, Tony.
With the blowing up of the
Stay
Nord
with
Stream
me on
pipeline.
that, because I'm going to come back to the economy. Stay with me, Tony. Crossing back over to Detroit. And Abayomi, I mean, many Americans, especially young ones, have stood against the U.S.-Israeli genocide against Palestinians, and Trump has punished universities, which allowed pro-Palestinian protests by cutting off funding, threatening deportation of foreign students or faculty activists, and pressuring schools to crack down on protests. I mean, let's talk about this and how this administration has been allowed to implement such draconian rules, and it does seem to contradict the U.S. Constitution.
It most certainly does. People, the last time I checked, do have a right under the First Amendment to free speech and assembly, and also the right to publish tracts or articles. Yet they've attacked the right of Palestine Solidarity Movement activists to protest on campuses and also in major cities around the country. But it doesn't stop there. They've launched a wholesale attack on scientific research. They've suspended all National Science Foundation grants to colleges and universities. They're carrying out purges of personnel at these schools. So it's a whole list of attacks on people: healthcare, food, housing. All of these supposed guarantees under the U.S. System are being denied. And we see the decline in the U.S. economy as well. Thousands upon thousands of people in the auto industry have been laid off, not to mention the federal government. And companies like Amazon, UPS, they're laying off a lot of people. Marriott International, one of the largest hotel chains in the world, has in fact filed for bankruptcy restructuring. So what's happening is that he's bringing down not only the U.S. economy, but it's impacting other capitalist countries throughout the world.
Yeah, indeed it is. Well, Tony, I mean, Trump has engaged in almost constant warmongering, threatening and are attacking several countries, even Iran. And now his administration is killing Venezuelan fishermen and threatening to invade Venezuela. He's even changed the name of the Department of Defense to the Department of War, which many would say definitely is more apropos. I mean, your thoughts about the average American and perhaps now starting to suffer from war fatigue as they see their president spending so much money on, well, we can say war, since it's not called the Department of Defense anymore, than actually spending it at home where Americans are definitely feeling the pinch.
It does all come back, I'm afraid, to global economics, really, because Venezuela is in no position to do proper negotiations with the United States. The United States is not trusted at all. The track record of negotiating with America is that they tear up agreements whenever it suits them. And actually, sometimes they try and destroy or bomb your government in the middle of the negotiations. So it's understandable that countries like Venezuela may not trust any kind of negotiations that they're doing. And the reason that the United States is on the back foot with these negotiations is because they're on the back foot economically. They're falling apart. It's actually good for Europe if America falls apart. But that's actually the other way round. It's the European industries that are having terrible trouble with high energy prices, and the Americans are trying to capitalize on that. But with Venezuela, there is something very positive actually has come out of all of this, and that is the resignation of Admiral Alvin Halsey, who's the commander of Southcom, who is the US unified command structure that tries to dominate the world, their little section for South America. He's thrown up his hands as an admiral in charge of that and said, no, I'm not doing this. I'm not going to get involved with a war of aggression, which is a war crime against Venezuela. So there are some people within the system, and he's an ethnic minority chap, by the way, who are kicking back against what they see as just a simple form of financial colonialism. And if Trump doesn't stop this, he will find that his approval rating falls even further, maybe even as far as Starmer's has in Britain.
Okay. Well, Abayomi, I mean, one of the more controversial acts of this Trump administration has been increasing troops and funding for U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE. Even citizens and permanent residents have been targeted, and people can even be stopped based on the way they look. And the U.S. Supreme Court has actually issued a decision clearing the way for this racial profiling during immigration raids and sweeps. I mean, why are we witnessing such increasing autocratic actions coming from Washington? And I mean, of course, the Supreme Court, the judges that have been stacked by the Republicans are just following along. So your assessment of this?
Yes, and they're targeting people they say that are in the United States illegally. Nonetheless, there is a right to due process. Even if you think someone has violated the immigration laws of the United States, you do have to take them into a court. They have a right to legal representation, and this is being completely violated. They've deported people to Ghana, for example, absent of any type of due process. These people didn't even know where they were going. They were placed in straitjackets. They were dumped at a military base. There's another detention center in El Salvador where they've been carrying out torture against people who are originally from Venezuela. This is having a negative impact even on the economy, because the migrants that are here in the United States, legally or illegally, are workers. They're the people who are planting and picking vegetables and fruits. They're the people who are working in restaurants, even in factories, on construction sites. So a lot of these companies now don't even have people to work as a result of the failed immigration policies.
Well, let me just jump in here with something you just said, Abayomi. So why is Trump doing this if he knows that this is going to have a negative effect on the economy, because of course there are lots of jobs that Americans will not do and the migrants do. And if they don't do it, it's not being done, and it's going to affect the greater economy. So if his goal, one of his goals was to help the economy, then why is he making these type of decisions?
Racism. The United States is swiftly becoming a majority-minority state. More and more people of African descent, Latin American descent, people from West Asia, and Native American people within another 2 decades will collectively be a majority in the United States. So a lot of white racists feel like they're being erased and displaced as a majority inside the United States. But what they don't understand is that they cannot go backwards in regard to the social conditions and the social history of this country. And it's just going to fail miserably, and it has failed miserably. And he's threatening even the historical friends of the United States, Britain. They're threatening to sue the British Broadcasting Corporation for $5 billion because of a program put on by Panorama. They've imposed tariffs on Canada, their next door neighbors, who are the largest trading partners of the United States. So the policy is completely irrational, and inevitably it will bring down his administration and also damage the U.S. economy as a whole. That's why you have 7 million people who went into the streets on October 18th. On November 4th, they lost literally every municipal and gubernatorial election that they were involved in. So this is a no-win strategy on the part of the MAGA Republicans.
Yeah, it's really quite mind-boggling that they are doing what they're doing. But I mean, Tony, Trump had also promised to create a bustling economy. And as Abayomi had just talked about, we know that that has not happened. And we know during the shutdown of the government, which took 43 days, we witnessed millions of Americans having to resort to food banks in order to eat. I mean, what's your assessment of Trump's economic policies so far in this presidency and the overall effect on the average American?
Look, I don't think the guy has much choice other than if he's going to implement monetary reform and land reform. Those are the sorts of things which will enable people, families to survive, family business to start to thrive again. Monetary reform would get rid of this massive debt, so you have government issued money instead of money borrowed from private banks. And land reform, you need to have redistribution of land. These are not the sorts of things that you can imagine Trump ever doing. And I think we have to understand there's something much bigger going on here, because in the modern world, both with the European Union, I suppose you could call it the Anglo-Zionist Empire, the European Union, United States, Britain and Israel, you have a very powerful force trying to, I would call them actually globalist fascists. They love all this because they love to see governments failing. They love to see the press talking rubbish, lies, as we were hearing about the BBC, creating havoc and chaos, because they know that the techno-feudalist giants, they will, and also, of course, the banksters that go with them and finance them, people like Peter Thiel, etc. These people love to see this because more and more power, more and more wealth is accruing into their hands. And in fact, I honestly believe these people, not Trump I'm talking about here or anybody else, the people behind the scenes, the owners of America and much of the rest of the world, the owners of our press and our media, those are the ones who are benefiting from the discrediting of the democratic system, the democratic process, and also the fair press. So, you know, it's not fair to say that nobody benefits. They do. And during the pandemic, of course, we saw the banksters make an absolute fortune, trillions of dollars going into their hands, their share prices rocketing, all the big pharma companies, for example. So some people are doing extremely well. The corporations, the big corporations that we were tried to warn everybody of, the military-industrial complex too, after the Second World War, the pharmaceutical industry that was responsible for the Zyklon B gas that killed so many Jews in Nazi Germany. These are the big conglomerates, the corporations that are winning now, as people like Trump, Starmer, and the European politicians are losing.
Okay. Well, Abayomi, I want to talk. I mean, you talked about racist policy. I want to look in a little bit to the Trump's administration, the DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, that basically says it's not necessary. I mean, what type of effect does that have in the United States?
Well, it has an impact on productivity. It has an impact on the environment in the workplace. It's been reported that 300,000 African-American women have lost their jobs since Trump came in office. So they're targeting people of color to say that they're unqualified for these positions, yet they cannot function efficiently on their own. All we have to do is look at what the government is doing at this point. So I think they're utilizing racism and anti-immigrant bias to justify their policies, but they're not going to work. And the question is, the money that's being made now by the tech companies who are behind the Trump administration, is that sustainable? When will it collapse? The fact that they are buying each other's stock in order to drive up the market does not bode well in regard to long-term economic viability. That's why you have Amazon, UPS, Marriott International, all being forced to lay off people, to restructure their economic operations. I don't think it's sustainable. I think eventually it will start to decline, and you'll see even more unrest in the streets in the United States and in other capitalist countries like Britain. Look at Birmingham, what's going on there? You know, garbage piled up in the streets. They can't even settle a garbage workers strike in the second largest municipality in England.
Yeah, indeed. Well, Tony, I mean, the latest controversy to hit Trump is the Epstein files and not releasing them after promising he would do so once becoming president. I mean, how much of an impact do you think that this particular scandal can have on the Trump regime?
Well, first of all, I think it annoys me a bit the way they're always referred to as the Epstein files. I think the main operator in that honey trap paedophile Mossad ring was actually Ghislaine Maxwell, whose father was known to work for the Israeli intelligence. So, first of all, I've also heard that Trump, or just literally today, I believe they've announced in the United States that Trump has asked for all of these files to be released. So maybe he's weeded out the ones he doesn't want to come out. But of course, this would be fascinating to know. This is what's called a black book in intelligence parlance. And that is to say they have dirt on many of the individuals who have made their way in the West up to powerful. I mean, it was amazing to even hear the intellectual Noam Chomsky talking about his friendship with Epstein, and he was impressed by how much he knew about the global financial system. So he was sucking everybody in. There will be dirt on many of these people, and that dirt is used to blackmail them. So I've even heard the most extraordinary, maybe it's speculation, that some people have actually deliberately went to Epstein Island, deliberately had sex with underage girls, etc., in order to further their careers, because they knew that if Epstein and Maxwell and the Mossad had dirt on them, that their careers would skyrocket and they would be able to make lots of money in high finance and politics. So it would be interesting to see if I'm correct and Trump really does release these finally.
Indeed, indeed. Well, Abayomi, I want to look at Trump's MAGA base, which is becoming increasingly delusional, especially young people, because of the whole, actually, they've become aware of the Israeli genocide and U.S.'s support, and also the Epstein case, and now we know the Charlie Kirk's assassination. Many of them say that the government, they feel that is involved. I want to talk about that MAGA base and how important this is in general if that falls apart.
It would be disastrous politically for the Trump administration. People like Marjorie Taylor Greene from Georgia has broken with the administration purportedly under the guise of his refusal to release the Epstein files. Now he says he wants to release them, but I don't trust what he's saying. It could just be another ploy to confuse people, to redirect people's attention away from his failures. Those files obviously has damning information against Trump. and other top business and political figures here in the United States. They don't want them released. And if they are released, they will, of course, deny the accuracy and the validity of these documents. So the MAGA base right now is split. I think that's part of the reason, but also if we look at the economic impact of his policies, for example, suspending SNAP benefits, which they did during the government shutdown, that impacts people across the board. In Georgia, I'm sure a lot of the constituents of Marjorie Taylor Greene were going without food, having to line up for hours to receive surplus food that's donated by private corporations.
Right. Sorry to interrupt you, but I just want to get this last question in, and I only have 1 minute for this. Tony, your thoughts? I mean, because there have been protests against Trump. Do you think that with the situation at hand, that these protests will continue, and at the end of the day, can they make a difference in his policy?
Well, I think they will, yes, because it's impossible to totally crack down in a nation, particularly as what we're seeing now is traditionally when there were problems at home, there would be foreign policy decisions which would distract attention from domestic politics. But I don't think that is, I mean, it may well happen, but I think it's going to be impossible now to distract from Donald Trump's failures at home and from the general economy's failures at home. And let's not forget right now what we're witnessing is governments that are actually not just at war with countries abroad, but actually at war with their own people.
Okay, and on that note, I'm going to have to end right there. Good place to end. I appreciate both of you being with me. Abayomi Azikiwe, editor, Pan-African Newswire. Out of Detroit, Tony Gosling, historian and investigative journalist out of Bristol. And thank you, viewers, for being with us on another Spotlight. Hope to see you right here next time. Goodbye.